Based on real events. 1959, Ural Mountains, Russia in February 1959. 9 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, vanished in the snowy wilderness of the Ural Mountains. Their campsite was later found torn open from the inside. Some were barefoot in sub-zero temperatures. Others had fractured skulls and ribs. Official reports blamed an avalanche, but no evidence supported it. That part is real. What no one realized until this point was that another 10th individual might have been present in 1993. A radio engineer named Dr. Alina Voronina of Yekaterinburg was contracted to examine Soviet-era frequency recordings released as recently declassified by the government. Most were routine weather broadcasts, but one file, signaled Dyatlov to 59ths, stood out. It was recorded on the night when the hikers perished. At first, she could only hear white noise, then muffled voices beneath the static accretion, slurred, hysterical. The time codes aligned with the official chronology of the Dyatlov group's last camp. When Alina passed the noise through a filter, she picked up something else, a secondary frequency, pounding beneath the human voices. Too periodic to be accidental, almost a heartbeat. She played it back at half speed. Between the pulses, a soft voice repeated a single sentence, relentlessly. "He found us." Alina became fixated. She asked for the original reel from Defense Ministry archives, but her request was refused. 2 days after that, the clerk from the archive who'd called her out to inquire about the reel died in a car crash. Defying procedure, Alina replicated the sound onto a personal drive. She created a spectrogram of the low-frequency hum. The visual representation created a shaped, jagged, humanoid, hunched forward, as if crawling. She copied the picture and stuck it on her office wall. That evening, the building's motion sensors activated at 2:14 a.m. Security cameras captured. No one but the lab's temperature fell 12 degrees in 1 minute. The next morning, when Alina came back, there were fresh marks scratched into the wall below the printout, for deep scratches, spaced like fingers. Several months afterward, she signed up for an independent expedition to Dyatlov Pass. The snow still concealed what was left of the initial campsite, but she had a portable receiver in order to track down the cryptic signal. The higher they went, the more warped the airwaves were. It wasn't interference, it was closeness. The signal was stronger, closer to a serrated outcropping of black rock, one that wasn't on any geologic map. Her machine gave out a rhythmic thud such as a heartbeat, the very same beat of the 1959 recording. Her Mansi hunter guide, a local man, would not approach further. "This spot is evil," he grumbled. "It recalls." At dusk, she set down the receiver and played back the recorder. Through the white noise, there came the same words again. "He found us," and then a new voice. "And now he found you." Elena's remains were never found. However, 3 weeks later, her rescue team discovered her tent, her broken radio gear, and her notebook full of equations and coordinates, and one last sentence in blood written across the end page were found inside. "It's not an avalanche. It's something that listens." When investigators played back the recovered audio file, the same heartbeat pulse was still there, but it now also had a new timestamp. It coincided with the minute the search party arrived at her camp in 2024. Trekkers along Dyatlov Pass heard rhythmic knocks on their satellite radio's 3 slow beats, then static, some attributed to an atmospheric echo. Others believe it's the same signal looping for more than 60 years, hoping someone else will hear it. The authorities have locked down the site once more, citing unexplained levels of radiation. Nobody is permitted to camp there overnight, but at night, on clear frequencies, the hum still seeps through, a low, heartbeat-like pulse whispering along the Ural winds. He found us. In 2018, a researcher of cold cases by the name of Sergei Antonov gained access to a batch of Soviet communications archives that had just been digitized. Among them was a degraded reel with a simple label: Dyatlov, 1959, emergency frequency. Sergei translated it onto a computer, wiped away the static, and almost forgot to breathe. The tape held voices, whispers, and terrified ones. You could hear the ripping sound of a tent and the cry of, "Don't look." Then there was a low, rumbling sound, rhythmic, steady, natural. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't equipment. And beneath it, in a flat mechanical voice that didn't sound like a human at all, "We recall the cold. We recall your fear." Sergei cut the playback short at once. A moment later, each speaker in his office made the same low pulse. Although the computer was turned off, his assistant opened the door to find the sound had ceased. Sergei glared at the screen, eyes unblinking. The waveform on the screen had shifted shape, creating a rough image, an eye. In 2022. Researchers at a private lab in Oslo discovered an unregistered signal coming from the Ural Mountains. Area it was repeating every 59 hours. Always exactly the same frequency, 14.32 megahertz, well below human voice range. They called it the Dyatlov Pulse. Scientists plotted the shape of the signal with high-resolution audio imaging. The resulting 3D was the shape of a human torso twisted in movement, as if crawling upwards. When the top scientist, Dr. Hannah Nilsson, played the sound through an acoustic chamber, all the devices in the vicinity started to malfunction, and the lab's heart rate monitors showed readings, even though no subjects were attached at night. Nilsson discovered words etched into the frost on her office window. "He follows the signal." By morning, the frost had disappeared, but the etched letters were burned into the glass. A St. Petersburg podcast team visited Dyatlov Pass in 2025 to shoot an anniversary documentary. They brought with them contemporary equipment, drones, heat cameras, satellite transmitters. The last video pulled from their body cams depicted the crew setting up camp by the location where Elena Voronina's tent had been discovered decades before. At 1:17 a.m., the wind started blowing. The radio started to hiss. One of them muttered, "Do you hear that?" It sounds like static engulfed the words. By the time authorities discovered the camp, a week later, the tents were slashed open from within. The timestamp on the camera rotated infinitely between 1:17 and 1:18. Experts who analyzed the data recovered saw something unusual. The audio waveform embedded a pattern that was identical to the heart pulse recorded in 1959, 1993, and 2018. But this time, a new message was hidden in the static. "Now you belong to the signal. Today." Climbers still steer clear of the Dyatlov Pass once night falls. But from time to time, northern Russian radio operators pick up a weak, cyclical signal, 3 slow beats, a burst of static, and what seems like a human voice under it. No translation has ever been verified, but those who have listened assure that the final word is always the same: alive.